Hello everyone and welcome to Traffic Corner Tuesday. My name is Nancy Crow and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Spack Consulting and your host for today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone of a couple of housekeeping rules for today's session. If you would, please mute your mic so we don't get a lot of background noise of what's going on in your office. That'll allow for a better listening experience for everyone who's in attendance today. And also, this event is meant to have a lot of dialogue. Our hosts, Mike and Bryant, are here not only to share their experience with their case studies, but also to get ideas, questions from the attendees. And if you have a great experience to share, we would love to hear from you as well. So please, during the session, write in your questions on the side, and we will make sure that we have time today to answer those questions. And then finally, as we continue on for today, I wanted to thank everybody before I introduce the speakers for just taking time out of your day to be with us for this particular episode. And we've been doing this now for several weeks. And as thank you for all of those people who've been with us for the past couple of weeks, as well as those that have been here today, we want to offer a free guide for all of the attendees. This guide will give you the instructions at the end of our webinar session, so please stay tuned. As we go through, we will give you instructions for attending this and getting the guide. So finally, I do want to take just a moment to introduce our speakers today. Today we have Mike Spack, who is the president of Spack Consulting and is the recognized industry leader of traffic studies. He's a graduate of the University of Minnesota, past president of North Central Section of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and a fellow of the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Since 1996, Mike has led over 1,000 traffic engineering projects. During the past 2 decades, Mike has founded 4 companies, including Spack Consulting, and is the creative force and principal writer for the industry-leading blog, Mike on Traffic. He's an accomplished author, and articles published in industry publications, as well as several industry manuals that are used by engineers around the world, that are must-read for everybody who is in this space. Our other host today is Bryant Fisek. He is the Vice President of Spack Consulting and is also widely known in the transportation industry, having managed over 700 traffic engineering projects. He is also a graduate of the University of Minnesota, and Bryant is an expert in the Synchro, SimTraffic, vSim traffic modeling software packages, and thrives on developing creative solutions for traffic and transportation issues. Bryant is a regular contributor on Mike on Traffic, a published author in industry publications, as well as a co-author of several industry manuals with Mike. I'm going to now turn it over to our 2 presenters today, Mike and Bryant.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Mike and Bryant here, and thanks for joining us for our 4th Traffic Corner. Today we're going to be talking about access management. But first, a little bit more background. Nancy mentioned the different things we have going on over at Spack Enterprises. We have our consulting arm, we do data collection, we sell traffic counting products, and very important in our viewpoint is we like to share. We have a bunch of training materials, ebooks, those things, and then of course the blog Mike on Traffic, where we post a couple times a week on things we hope are helpful and interesting.
All right, so we're on week 4 of 5 here on our little experiment. So today we're going to be talking about access management, circulation, and we'll go over it like we've done in the past. We've got an overview of the topic itself, and then we'll talk about a case study in particular that we had, which we found interesting. We hope you will as well.
So an overview on access management. This certainly isn't new to any seasoned traffic engineers, but I'm not sure how well this is covered in normal civil engineering classes, so maybe there's a new graduate or 2 out there. But basically, a road with a bunch of driveways on it, you end up with all these conflict points as people are turning in and out of the driveways. If we get rid of 2 of those 3 driveways, we end up with significantly less, and it's not even a 1-to-1 ratio with the crossings, we end up with a lot less. And then, of course, if you put a median down that road so you can't get the lefts coming in or the lefts coming out of the site, you end up with even less movements. So just a right-in, right-out driveway is the extreme case. Well, a right-in or a right-out would be the extreme case, but here it's just right-in and right-out, which eliminates all these different crossing movements. So just some general theory behind safety. The less conflict points, the safer the road generally will be. But of course, it's our job to balance safety with mobility. So it doesn't mean we're going to put right-in, right-outs only at every access. So it's part of our job as professionals to balance these somewhat conflicting operational things.
So, and Mike touched on it here, but really why we look at access management is safety. You're trying to make it better for the people coming in and out of those driveways, better for the people on the main lines. It's just, as you saw in that other graphic, once you eliminate a lot of those movements, it becomes a safer roadway for all those involved. The second reason is obviously to improve operations. And got a shot here of freeway basically, and this is kind of the ultimate example of access management where everything goes through the interchange. It's very defined where you can get on and off, and it becomes, in general, good operations, very safe operations, notwithstanding those peak times when they can get congested.
So as Brian mentioned, we'll start off here with kind of the bigger overview of improving access management and safety, and kind of the first thing in the handful of options, tools at our disposal is one, just get rid of driveways, access points. Reducing the number of access per the previous diagram will reduce the conflict points. So just if we can get rid of driveways, that is a step towards making things safer.
Second one, also shown in that figure, is consolidating access. So if we can have one driveway instead of three, you're saving a lot on those conflict points. You're making things better. If you can put a road down the property line and serve multiple properties through it, you're much better off than trying to serve them all individually.
And the third on our list here is to reduce some of the movements into those access points. So that would be placing a median down the road to convert it to a right-in, right-out, or leave an opening in that median so vehicles can turn left into the site, but vehicles can only turn right out. That would be called a three-quarter access. You can also, it's not always fully effective, but you could just put up signs at a driveway saying no left turn out. But we have plenty of videos of driveways with people disregarding those types of signs. So occasionally we believe you need some enforcement to really drive home those kind of restrictions that are just out there based on signs.
This could also be one-way movement, so you change a driveway from a two-way access to a one-way movement, either all entering or all exiting. It's really just speaking to trying to reduce the number of movements, again trying to reduce those conflict points and improve safety and operations.
So the next option
is just basically to improve safety. So we show our little Timmy here with the flag. You see those on neighborhoods to try to make it safer for kids playing out, make sure people are aware. This would be the same kind of thought. Can you do something with signing? Can you do something with the geometry, the physical setup of the driveway? Anything you can do to try to make that driveway safer so people know it's there, they're aware of people coming in and out of the driveway, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the last step that we look at.
Okay, so now to go a little bit, to move from the general theory and tighten it into a case study. We have an example here from Indiana of a warehouse. Here's a big warehouse, and Ryan, if you want to explain what's going on.
So this one came from a colleague of ours. He'll send us some interesting situations every now and then. We get to help him out and look at these, and this was one of those cases where like Mike pointed out, we've got the warehouse here. This is off of a state road, so about 10,000 vehicles per day, but it is a state road, and normally you would not want those access points on there, and you're trying to figure out ways you can improve it. So if we
but it is pretty common that you'll end up with kind of these legacy issues on much older roads of when there's no traffic out there, not a big deal. Just let people have the driveways they want. See this very common in rural areas or outside of small towns, and then as a metro area kind of grows out, the suburbs expand out to these what were rural locations. The multiple driveways start to become an issue as traffic starts to grow, and you can see we're up to 10,000 vehicles per day out here on State Road 1.
And we got the arrows there. They've got 3 driveways coming in. It's the one in the middle that raised some concerns. This is where the trucks would come, and they would actually stop on the state road and back into the docking bays there. So it becomes obviously a situation for those truck drivers who have to stop operations on the road, but also people on the state road that are flying forward at 55, 60 miles an hour, and suddenly there's a truck in front of them that's making maneuvers into the dock. So that's one of the issues there. And then obviously just the 3 access points, and you can see the public access on the other side too that's offset. So just a lot of access points, a lot of truck movements coming through, just a lot of different things going on. A little bit more about the site. You can see on the back side there are railroad tracks, so it's not like we're going to be able to pop in and access from the other side. We're limited. We're not going to make a new crossing of the railroad tracks. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about the trucks, but depending on the day, they could have up to 20 trucks using that access. So you can think about that. If you got 10,000 vehicles per day on the state road and you got 20 trucks spread out across the day that will stop that traffic for a period of time as they're doing their maneuvers, that's an issue. So the basic question, which fed into this access management and what we were looking at, is can we improve the truck operations on this road? How do we figure out a way to keep the traffic moving, get the trucks in and out, and essentially try to keep everybody happy while improving the overall safety of the site?
Yeah, as the road is getting busier and things are changing conditions, developing area, building owners recognize there are issues, and they also want, in addition to the state DOT wanting a safe road, they also, for their operations, want a safe situation.
All right, so here, looking at some options, the first thing we thought, this was just, as we started out, it was just a brainstorming exercise of looking at the site and what are some options that we can think of how to improve it. And the first obvious one is, can we move those doors? Can we just close that access and have the trucks go somewhere else? Now this obviously has a lot of implications for the site. They'd have to reorganize everything essentially. Their internal operations would change, where the trucks would load and unload would change. They would have to build that new infrastructure to accommodate it. But just looking at it, that becomes the first obvious one of, hey, if you can do this, that's the way to go. Don't try to make the best of a bad situation. Change your situation and make it better.
Yeah, a more current modern design with warehouses is you will end up with the loading bays on one of the sides of the building. That they won't put them right off the road's front. They'll put them so they can pull into the site and make their turning maneuvers within the site. But of course, that takes the internal configuration of the warehouse, as Brian mentioned. You have to be set up for those. So it's not just a matter of moving some doors on an exterior and suddenly, hey, we have doors in a new location. There could be refrigerators, all the columns inside, the way they lay out the offices. I mean, there's all the internal layout stuff. Really
and then
matters.
just their internal operations too, where they store stuff, how they get those forklifts back and forth, where they're traveling. You are talking about a complete redo of the warehouse, which might be a good thing, but might not be the thing that they want to go with.
Right. So the next thought, kind of going back to our list, is, hey, kid, if we can't do anything with the physical site in the warehouse, is there a way that we could warn users of the road out there that there's truck activity? And that can be simple as kind of, we've seen kind of the truck signs, different warning signs in advance, the static signs all the way up to, do we want to put in some kind of flashing beacon? Do we want to put in some type of actuated? So when there are actually trucks out there, especially if they are making their backing maneuvers on the highway, something to try to wake up those sleepy commuters in the morning to try to snap them out of it in advance of coming up upon the truck.
Yeah, so this is where we talked about even, like Mike said, the signal actuated type system. You can see, though, a complication on the other side is that public road, and they're offset a little bit there, so if we were trying to signalize that driveway, it quickly becomes more complicated as you're trying to get to that side street, and how can you keep maneuvers going there. So next one, can we somehow close that access and have the trucks maneuver a different way? So
in essence, could they come in driveway up here, driveway down here? Could they pull past the doors? Would they have enough room to then make the backing maneuver to go into the warehouse? Which, it's a tight site, but can we get them off of the state highway and turn this into a more reasonable site and consolidate down to just 2 driveways on the site instead of get rid of this middle third one?
Essentially, you're trying to take the maneuvers from the public right-of-way and put it onto their property, and just how can we make that happen to, again, separate those movements.
Okay, and then another option, which kind of crazy, pie in the sky, expensive, but when brainstorming we don't cut ourselves off, and this could solve the problem, is, hey, can we somehow move the highway over and give them more stacking distance? As part of it, maybe close this driveway, but give them more room around here to do their backing maneuvers. Obviously, this is quickly off the table, as even if it is feasible, as crazy expensive compared to the actual problem we're trying to solve.
That's the most expensive option. You're essentially moving a road for the benefit of one property, which doesn't do a lot in the eyes of the public. Once other people, the general public, as they start to look at it, and even if it is, we work for here, but then is everybody else going to be asking about that too? And do you set up a precedence so that the next time you have to move the highway again? So it's an option, but there are a whole lot of downfalls with that option once you start thinking through all the impacts, all the implications of saying this is what we want to do. All right.
So yeah, we kind of took these ideas and kind of boiled it down into 2 options for the team working on this to discuss and look through.
So just right up front, a couple things that we talked about was adding some signs beforehand, providing some of that warning of what's going on. Mike zooms in here, you can see In this option, we're closing that center access, so we wanted to get rid of that. That red line there, what we're thinking of is a physical barrier, concrete barrier that would separate the highway traffic from the roadway here. And you can see we measured it out, and we've got about 72 feet there. So if you put the 69 from the building to the barrier, so that should give us enough room for those trucks to maneuver. But right along with that, we've highlighted some areas in yellow, those yellow boxes. We need to pave some areas too to allow them to have more space. And then as you look, you can see on their site they've got some stacks right in front there. All those would have to be moved, either shifted closer to the building or moved somewhere else completely, so that a truck has a lot of room to maneuver back and forth. So another item you can see, if we're going to introduce a barrier, we need to put the crash cushions on there. We need to have a well-defined radius to come around that corner. Just defining that access a little bit more and protecting where that barrier starts or ends, depending on which direction you're going. And then down on the other side, you can see we've got the same thing with the crash cushions and defining that radius, as well as adding some more pavement, another paved area, to have that corridor next to the building from one access to the other. So we'd have to pave that in there, and that would be an implication for some of their parking too. You can see the cars parked there right next to the building. If you got trucks coming through that area, those may have to move as well. So again, a kind of a combination of different things, looking at some signing to let people know what's going on, let them know that there's no shoulder for this area with that barrier coming up, making sure the barrier is protected, paving some areas. But all in all, we're essentially trying to take those maneuvers, put them on the other side of the barrier, separate that traffic out. So we get that separating that apart.
So that was option 1, and as soon as I unzoom, I'll be able to move to option 2. Oh, and then I'm moving too fast.
So this was similar in terms of how we looked at it. You can see the north end here looks pretty similar. We've got the barrier in there, still some paving areas, things to move. What changed on this one is the south end. And so this is where we're looking to close that farthest south access and try to move it north for 2 reasons. The first one is the idea that maybe those trucks can get to that a little easier. They can turn in, and it's not a series of turns, just kind of a pull off and come in, as opposed to the other one where they'd have to right turn into the access, left turn into the development. Yeah,
so option 1 had a much sharper maneuver of turning right in here and then coming north, where if we can square up the intersection more with the public road on the west side, can we have more of a gentle swooping right in that they can stay in the right turn lane or on the shoulder and then keep moving at 10 miles an hour right into the site and not cause a backup. Of course, this shift for employees would change up the parking lot here and also make them essentially do a U-turn, which there is enough room for a passenger vehicle to be able to make that U-turn to come down to get over this parking. You'd change the angle of parking to go the other way probably. So has ramifications, but if we are starting from, this is closer to what we would be recommending if we were starting with just a site plan and the building wasn't there yet, that we would want to square up this intersection and get them into the site here instead of having multiple driveways and intersections close to each other.
So you can see kind of from both these options, we're really taking a combination as we look at the access management and then how these maneuvers come through that site circulation and everything. So we did our best to remove and consolidate. So we went from 3 to 2 in both options. We tried to square up the intersection in option 2 and separate out those movements. So again, this was a more difficult one. There wasn't really an easy answer, and we kind of went through our two-step process of let's brainstorm and then let's get back with our client, talk a little bit about these options, and then come back and, based on the feedback, figure out where we're going to go next.
And we should say that we were basically working in the area of this private owner coming to us, and things like getting down to a single driveway for all their traffic, that was not palatable, or forcing the trucks to go all the way around the building to loop around. They were resistant to that as well. So you can look at further ideas, but we're trying to improve the situation, recognizing we will not get to an ideal perfect situation. We're trying to make incremental improvements for them. So that's kind of the limitations we had in working on this project. And as traffic engineers, it took a while for me to understand this, but whether you're working for a government agency or whether you're a private consultant, you end up having constraints imposed on you by whoever the people paying the bills are.
Right.
That they will put constraints of, okay, we'll go this far, but we're not going to your ideal solution that Mr. Engineer you're proposing here.
Yeah, and there's obviously, we still want it to be safe. So we want to make sure that we're comfortable moving forward with whatever we propose. And this is going through the state DOT. They have to check it over, and they may look at this and say that's not acceptable to them. But it's again, getting that conversation started, coming up with some options and saying, okay, we're comfortable with this from our side, the client's comfortable with this, so now let's bring it forward and let's see where it goes.
Yep. So from there, we don't see any questions over there. Certainly type something in if you have any thoughts or concerns, but we are punctual people and we only have a couple minutes left. So in the meantime, looking for questions. Nancy brought up, we do have a quick little ebook we put together on access management techniques, and you can go ahead and text to the number 44222 and text the word traffic corner, and you'll get instructions for getting that PDF downloaded, or you can just go ahead and email Nancy at ncrow@spackconsulting.com, and she'll make sure you get the document. I would note texting, any data rates would apply, so if you're out of the country and you have specific fees whenever you text somewhere, those are on you. We don't know what those even are, and we're not covering those. So we hope you'll want that, and either text or email Nancy to get that guide. And not seeing any questions, so with that, I believe we'll wrap up and say thanks, everyone, and hope to see you next week. We will be covering event management and a couple of events we've worked on here lately, which should be timely, coming on the day after Halloween.
Yeah, should be good. So, and feel free to email either of us. Let us know. We hope you find this useful, but we'd love some feedback as well. You can email Nancy or myself or Mike, and let us know what you think.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.